Aloha, everybody. This is Janet Care Lessin in Maui, Hawaii, with Teresa J. Morris in Gulf Breeze, Florida. And we are back on air again, doing our new series. We haven't quite named it yet. Mine used to be Aquarian Radio, then I switched to Aquarian Media. And TJ, what are you calling your series of shows?
Oh, shoot. Oh, goodness. I use a lot of YouTube channels, so I don't care. We can change the episodes up, but this is
Oh, it
first in this
was
series.
series. It was
My
TJ Morris
buzzword is
ET Radio.
ACO Club. ACO
Okay,
Club.
ACO Club. All
Alien,
right.
that's fine.
And put
TJ
your
Mars
screen
ET
down just a
Radio.
little bit here. Put your screen down just a little bit so we have you. There we go. There we go. That's great.
You want more of me?
Okay.
Okay.
So this first episode, and we will tell you what we're going to call it. We got to figure it out. Is about men in black, angels, aliens, and interdimensional beings. And so we're going to go through some of the episodes in our life, a little bit of background of who these people are. See this guy with the wings? He kept showing up in my life, but without the wings. So not sure what he wanted, but we'll go into that. Okay. So TJ, you know more about the Men in Black than I do because you worked closely with them in various ways. Who and what are the Men in Black, also known as MIBs?
Allegedly, the history of Men in Black
Alleged.
comes from the UFO world. Allegedly, from the uh, world we don't speak about. And the reason they were called Men in Black were they were always seen wearing black, but they were also considered doing black ops, or those we do not talk about. So Men in Black is a clandestine bunch, and most people that are in America will have already seen the Men in Black series with Tommy Lee Jones. Was that his name? Anyway,
Tommy
Will
Lee
Smith.
Jones and
Will
Will
Smith.
Smith, but then
Is
they
that
had a new version, which I didn't see the new version. Yeah.
But the basic operation that you see in that would be the basic way in our folklore, folk life, and culture, even our ace folk life culture, is the way we understand Men in Black to be, that they are real men, or are they ET? And I would suggest that they are both, that Men in Black work possibly interdimensionally. And this isn't a new theory, but because we have so much knowledge out there that is protected, we believe the Men in Black, there's those trained in the intelligence community, but for the history of ufology, alienology, and in contact experiencers, we use those people who come allegedly to meet humans that have had other than worldly experiences with those not of earth, meaning those that weren't earthbound, possibly those from the heavens came, or those who travel from other dimensions, or other universes, or even other galaxies. We can't admit or deny that any of these beings exist. However, they're in our psyche, and our souls know in our DNA sequencing, or that which we speak about now in our double helix, our double DNA, are the helixes, that we have all this knowledge. And the Men in Black protect that because they really don't want us climbing up the food
Right.
chains, right? The food chain.
So
They keep
we're
us
gonna go.
earthbound.
Right. We're going to go through that. We're going to kind of go quickly because we only have an hour. So
Okay.
so just who do they tend to contact and why? Because you and I both got contacted, but in general, I'm going to keep the slides going. Who are
Those who
these
are
Men in Black
aware,
contacted?
it is known in the alienology world or ufology that they contact those who have had a contact, an abduction, some type of experience dealing with those from another place in space. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So those usually they start with those seeing flying saucers, orbs. The history in ufology is those who historically were known to go back in history. Now, there's the movie version with Will Smith, but that picture behind Will Smith is an actual footage of two men in black coming into a building, and that's you can't really see their faces. So a
Right.
lot of times the reason we think they're from another place in space, their face is humanoid. However, they have a pale, milky, almost white, like no, they're not albinos, but close to it. Some will have a grayish white or a light green, even, uh,
Mm-hmm.
but they're human. So the ones I've seen in my life have been after midnight, or, well, I have several occasions I've seen them.
But we're going
So,
to
but
go over
they're
that
like,
in this slideshow. I know
okay.
you didn't have time to review it, so got some surprises. I'm sure I don't have all the episodes in both of our lives with this mysterious contact, and we will probably think of more after this slideshow is over. But like I said, we're only going to do this for about an hour top. So this next segment is your first contact, and so I hope you're okay with it. But here we go. Oh no! Why is it that silly?
Yeah, I
Terrible.
wish that was my
So
first contact.
you
My
told me
mother.
that you went in about 1966. So I looked and I saw, well, 66 was Thunderball, right? You don't
Ah,
remember what you saw, but it was Thunderball. And so you tell us the story,
I
what
like the
happened with,
picture.
and Raquel Welch with it. She just died. Isn't that ironic? Yeah, by Raquel. And Sean passed a
Yeah.
couple years ago. So okay, so you tell the story. Here, I'm going to leave this off. You're going to tell the story, and then I was doing it from memory and notes, so I don't know how accurate it was. So what happened? You're in the movie theater. You're with your first husband, but you're not married yet. How old were you? You were like 15.
Yeah, I was 15, and we'd been going steady a year or so, but he was real smart. He got 5 scholarships to right here. He was a senior, and I was in the 10th, going to be in the 11th grade. And
Mm-hmm.
because I'd come out May 10th, 1967, this must be before that, I got indoctrinated into NASA, as did he, after we saw this movie.
Okay,
But
something
Men
had
in
of a
Black,
song. Yeah,
yeah, Men in
let's
Black
focus on this episode. What happened in this episode?
We went to a movie theater to see this
Uh huh.
movie, Thunderball, I guess, because I didn't know the name of it. But I knew it was a James Bond movie because he and I were very into that. So some men after the movie, we watched the movie and we got up to leave, and some literally Men in Black came in, at least two in the front and two in the back, had us, and instead of walking us out the way we were going to go out, sort of a incline up and out, they took us down to the side and didn't talk to us, just herded us while people were leaving, and walked around us and took us and herded us out the side door. And there were a couple of more men out there. So it must have been two,
Oh my
four,
goodness.
six, I guess, in all. And they took us out the side door to ask us if we would like to be invited to work for them, or for the
So who did
government,
they ask
or
first? Did they ask you, or what was your Steve? Was his name Steve? Your husband's
Steve
name?
was my first husband, Stephen Lee
Okay.
Parrish.
Did you
Yes, he's
talk to you
deceased now.
first or to Steve first? Who were they asking?
We were both standing at the top of the stairs, and I understand now it was the smoking man that was
Uh,
66. He was part of the NASA group, Air Force, and he was starting a whole new psychic group. But I didn't know that at the time. This is history now. Okay. So
yeah.
that's why it can be confusing, because you and I have knowledge after researching our entire lives how all this stuff works. But it
Right.
became important because they never said who they were. And they would just ask how I would like to work for them or the government. And it continued throughout my life, where they would show up in my life. But at that time, the smoking man, like out of X Files, was standing at the bottom of the stairs smoking, and he looked up
Wow.
and talked to both of us. at the same time. And then he was talking about how would we like to work. And then he was talking, and Steve was like, well, I don't know. I've got these scholarships. He didn't know. He didn't know what he was going to do. He hadn't even made a decision what college he was going to go to yet. But they said, oh, actually, we're talking to her. But they hired both of us. And they wanted to know how I would feel. They said, do you like the movie? Did you like the movie? And asked me, how would I like to do that type of work? And I was like, yeah, that'd be fun, So I didn't know if they were talking about being James Bond or being the girl, but it didn't matter at the time, So,
Wow.
but anyway, they said that we left, and they said they'd be back in touch. So Steve and I left in the car, and they just disappeared, at that time.
Did they ever get back in touch with you? Did they ever get back in touch with you?
All through my life, but not the same people until I did all the research now. As now I'm coming forth to help figure out how this works, various levels of our existence.
And then Steve ended up working for NASA. But he was
I did the paperwork, but I was too young. They took all my paperwork and put me in through the government, and it was in the Post, Houston Chronicle, by May 10th, 1967. It was in the paper. I was going to Washington, D.C., and that we were going to be working for the government. So it was bona fide, put in the Chronicle, that we were the Houston Spinnerets. So some of us girls were chosen.
That's different than this episode, but I didn't cover the Spinnerets, which I will put that in. We'll do that later. We didn't, when we were going through our list, I didn't include this Spinneret episode, which we will have to do in another show. Okay, because I missed that one. I'm sorry, I forgot that one. All right, so then let me see what's next. Okay, I don't know why half of my things aren't working. It's very interesting, but here we go. Okay, so there was this. Let me.
That's about you.
See, I'll show you. Now we're switching over.
All right, now it's me and you. Experience.
So I'll talk.
Okay, you talk
about this. So I was researching the Men in Black thing, and it said it came up with this Mothman thing, and I go, why are they talking about Mothman? So here's a representation of Mothman. So while you were getting a discussion about joining them in some kind of formal way as an agent, a secret agent, I was in this Mothman thing, which was a big deal. I was in a group of people that saw it. I didn't actually see it. I was right there when everybody saw it, and I was running around trying to find it, and we were chasing it. It was in Avalon Park, which is part of Pittsburgh, and I grew up in a town called Avalon. And they were, first just a couple dozen of us. Literally by the end of the night, there were hundreds of us running around. Some were running and they were afraid, and others were, seeing this thing and chasing after it. And it was very elusive. And apparently, this went on for a couple nights. The paper came and put us on there. So it's a mystery. I don't know exactly what the connection.
I lost your sound, bending. Did we freeze, or did you just freeze?
Okay, I'm back. Am I back? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're back.
Can you hear me?
I don't know where you went. Okay. I can't see. You're still frozen on my screen.
Okay, well, can you see the slides?
Yeah, yeah, I can see the slide in us. Okay.
All right, so they ended up filming at the and stayed at the Avalon Motel. I had worked at the Avalon a couple of years later, and I was probably working there right around when they were filming. Not sure. I'll have to find. Anyway, next episode is you. So, and I took some notes. I might have it confused. That
Wow,
Men
that's an
in
early
Black
picture
came.
of Jesse Marcel.
Yeah, I was
Oh
finding the
yeah,
early
you're right.
ones. He was much older when you met him. What year? Well, about 75 to 76. So he was a young man in 47. So 47, 57, 67. Yeah, that was 25, 30 years later. You met him. So it's just a picture
Yeah,
of Jesse
I
Martell when
haven't
he was.
done it. It seems like it was
Huh?
76, but Stanton T. Friedman and I were both asked to do something with the government and him, but we were both, I guess, contractors. I don't know because I know more now than I did then as a teenager. But I was taken to meet him.
Right.
I got picked up in Dallas. We had a naval base, Air Force, let's see, Memphis and Dallas. But uh, a Navy man picked me up in a Navy van and took me to up and down the coast of California. And then he brought me back. I went over there and they took all my information. And I was already in the system. They said they found my social security number back in the day on printouts, along computer papers. You remember with the dots on them? And the guy said my name and social
Yes.
security was already there as a corpsman. So I had to be a corpsman again. So they made me an HM3 corpsman and put me in the Navy in Balboa Hospital. So I went, I guess, through boot camp and worked on base. And then I remember going to China Lake up and down there, and I went to a Marine base. But during that period of being there, I was taken to see Jesse Marcel in that white van, or was it? No, it was a white van. Yeah, I keep thinking black because I've seen so many black while I was in the military. What?
Right. Do you know what town? What
But they,
town? What city that you
no,
went?
because it
Where
was
did you?
midnight. They didn't tell me where I was going, and neither did the guy.
Okay.
Uh, so all I know is they took. I knew it was Louisiana because I was from Louisiana. So they took me, and Jesse Marcel, I was in an older home. It may have been his or his parents. I don't know. But it was the original. It was that guy, Jesse Marcel. And he was a lot older, but he and I talked. But when I met the men in black outside his house, and when I got out of the van, they got out of the van, which I didn't know, they just let me out. The one guy was escorting me. He wasn't like in chains or anything. So he let me out. He had told me, uh, I don't know if he was supposed to tell me, but he had asked me if I ever heard of Jesse Marcel, the boy that was driving the van, because he knew where he was taking me. But I said, no. He said, oh, I think he was curious as to why he was doing what he was doing because he didn't know. He just knew who he was taking me to see. But when I got out of the van, these men in black came up and they looked at me and talking. I don't know who they were talking to, but they were talking. I just remember the men in black talking and uh, escorted me in the house. I guess I just got it. It was weird. It's that I knew it was around midnight, and they took me in, and we sort of went in the living room. I think Jesse opened the door, and I think there was a living room, and then there was a kitchen dining room behind that. I just remember walking into the dining room, and we went in there, and he was sitting there. I don't know if he had a cup of coffee and a cigarette or what, but he was sitting there. I can't remember the details. It's been too long. But I can remember why it was him and the fact that in my head, he was talking to me and I didn't know how. But Jesse Marcel could talk to me psychically and told
Well,
me
he was
that
able
why
to do
they were there.
telepathic. So he was able to do telepathic communication with you.
Apparently,
Interesting.
yes. So I think that's probably why we were working with the Men in Black and the ETs, and I'd opened my mouth up, being a psychic from the time I was like 14 and 15. And I was using that with my husband. So I was testing out all my skills when NASA and that, they knew about it, right? In their little secret UFO groups or whatever.
Right.
That's
Uh-huh.
I'm trying to put all that together still. So put the story together or the way it may have a sequence of events. But regarding this crash at 47, it was about that because Jesse told me in my mind that they thought he had, I guess he told me in my mind because he wouldn't say it out loud. But
Right.
from what I could understand, they thought he had a piece of, and he did. He had a piece of that ship that in his they said they think it's buried in my backyard. I guess they're going to dig my whole backyard up. He had it in a coffee can. Later on, we found out he had it under the water heater, right? But they thought it was out in the back. So from what I figured out years later, because nothing happened after that, I just I talked to him. It was a nice, hi, how are you? He said, now what he did say outside was to everybody in the room or the Men in Black and me. Oh, you just, first he wouldn't talk out loud at all. He said, oh, you know Stanton Friedman? And I was like, no, you just missed him. Now this happened to me again later in Roswell, which was sort of a tell sign of these Men in Black, right? So
Right.
that's the first time I learned about Stanton Friedman and got on trying to figure out who I was and what I was doing with this psychic stuff. Stanton Friedman always seemed to be in the know, but that's just Stanton. So Stanton could keep a secret because he did all those years, But he worked on the Jesse Marcel case, and I did for the. I don't know if I was for the government or I guess I was just a contractor, right? Because I was too young to work for NASA direct. But they had all my paperwork. I had to have a clearance. And even though my husband worked there, and I did, I came and went into NASA all the time. I had a clearance to go into everywhere. But I think that's because, well, I don't know why. I was just one of the young girls that came and went. I could type.
Well, yeah, I think I know why they interviewed you, but I didn't know what you wanted to say about it. But I included some slides about it. So
I don't know about
it was your connection with the Roswell crash, but I don't know if you want to go into that today. But
we always said it looked like
thing.
a boomerang. Well, that picture, they had the trucks that looked like that back then.
Say that again.
I don't know where you got this picture, but it was like a boomerang, but it wasn't finished back then. It looked like a boomerang, like we have boomerangs.
Okay.
But
anyway, so
like that. That looks like
what it looked like.
Saucer.
So this is an artist rendition or some kind of composite. All these things are up on the internet. It's interesting when you go searching for images, what you come up with. But
if those wires had a boomerang on it with wings like that, they look like a boomerang.
Like a triangle? Or like a triangle. Like a boomerang.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I need to look for those, and you can
there's
find
some
them.
saucers. There's 30 by 30s.
Yeah, so they have them looking like a 30 by 30.
Yeah.
But you're saying that the Roswell craft was a boomerang.
The ones I always see pictures of are never exactly. Yeah, they're never the right. So the ones they do pictures are the old flying saucers.
Right. And that's because of Kenneth Arnold. Now, see this guy here. No, not this guy. Where's the one I have? This guy. This is the one I used to see all the time. He used to come to me.
Is that?
That's supposed to be Arrow. And it's spelled, I've seen it spelled ARIL and AIRL. And we interviewed Lawrence Arrow, AIRL or ARIL, Arrow.
Ariel.
and we interviewed Lawrence Spencer about his book. But this fellow here I've seen him
Ariel.
at the foot of my bed, and part of a group that carried me from time to time. So let's see what the next slide is. So this is the story about Errol the Grey. And Errol, or Matilda, was the one that could speak telepathically with Errol. Matilda,
Yeah.
That's just a long name. And
Yeah, well, he made that name up. Yeah, he made that name
right.
up, but that was for the lady that Glenn Dennis. So I went and talked to Glenn Dennis.
Right. That's after the. So we're going to write up your Glenn Dennis thing. I don't have anything about it right this moment. And then this guy recently, people are cleaning out their parents' and grandparents' houses, and somebody found this. And this must be
Black Ops. See,
Black Ops. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much anything that's classified, above top secret, and maybe has a code name or certain.
Have you seen the little grays? Yeah, the Black Ops.
Yeah.
Have you seen the little grays? Or is this pretty accurate?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. So.
Except they wear uniform. The ones. Oh, that's me.
Yes.
What you got me in there for?
Yeah. Because I showed you in the Navy.
Oh yeah, I was in the Navy. Yeah, I wore I wore Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines. The only one I wasn't issued was Coast Guard. I don't know why. I visited the Coast Guard.
Navy?
Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. That's my Navy. That's the second time I was a 4x10 rehire. Huh? What?
And first time was Army. Was the first time Army?
Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, but they took me. They couldn't put me in any of the contracts because the Navy had the original contract, naval intelligence, for psychic work. With that guy, the smoking man, had already claimed me from NASA and the Air Force. So Air Force man was always in charge. That's how I met Jesse. I mean, I guess maybe Jesse Marcel, but also met J. Allen Hynek. But there's a history of people. What?
So what I wanted to know is, okay, maybe you could talk about Glenn Dennis right here. I don't have pictures for. You went to the Roswell Museum. So this was later. So I was trying.
Yeah.
To do sequence. So.
Okay. Well. Yeah. When I went to see. Glenn Dennis was 1995. It was, I'd already been talking to
talk about that later.
Don Berliner and Stanton Friedman already. So, and I'd talked to the lady at Ames and, a lot of astronauts and a lot of UFO people, so there's a history that people don't. Right. We couldn't tell it until like now. I mean, I'm technically. Yeah, you're doing okay. I mean, you've got pieces. So
I just wanted to know. So we'll bookmark that for when we get to the 90s. We're still in the 70s, right? Okay, so now we're going to the 80s. So I had an episode where I was supposed to get approached to get a scholarship for the second year of computer school. I had been out of school for 10 years. I went back to school to get a degree in computer science because I wanted to stop working minimum wage jobs. So I knew I had to get further education. And I did very well. I was number one in my class. And so they wanted me to, take this scholarship, which ended up paying for my room and board and food and all the books and all the classes. So it was great. But I had to take a physical. And I went into this room. I went to where the appointment was, and there was a big room. And I was, taken to this smaller room off the side, but it was kind of open. It was very strange. It was like, it wasn't enclosed. And I waited there for the longest time. And they had me lying back and just waiting to be examined, on the table. And this person came in. Oh, and it doesn't show this unless you do the slide mode, but his eyes actually move. So it was an ET. It was a humanoid, but it didn't look like a gray. It didn't look like this guy, but it definitely wasn't human. And because his eyes were extremely large, like this guy's. They were blue in color, and as soon as he talked to me, I was like frozen, and it was all telepathic. And humans don't communicate telepathically. So he said, "Well, there's something." He says, "What's that?" And he was putting his hands over my intestines, and I was very constipated back then. I could, I was my whole system was. I was a nervous wreck. I was going through a divorce, and my whole system was screwed up. And so he did something, and I think it was probably he conveyed to me that if I don't fix this, you're not going to live long, because I was getting severe diarrhea. I couldn't go. I had to be able to go to school. I was missing school, doubled over in
Yeah, I've
pain.
never heard
So
about.
anyway, he corrected. Yeah, so I'm just telling you that episode. So then,
Okay,
next slide.
after
In 1988, I was very sick. I got my wisdom teeth pulled, and it was a female dentist, and she didn't pack it correctly, so I got what's called dry socket. So I'm in work in downtown Pittsburgh at Federated Investors, and something was just violently ill. Had fever and chills. I couldn't walk and sit down. And so they let me leave, but I called my husband at the time, and he said, "I'm not leaving work." He said, "You get yourself there." He was very mean. That's why I divorced him. Anyway, so the dentist said, "Come on in." So I had to take a trolley. It was like a long journey. It took me about an hour. I was sick as a dog. And then when I went to the office, there was nobody there. Um, I think someone came in. I don't know. It was just very bizarre energy. Nobody was there. I ended up somehow knew to go sit on the chair. The same thing happened. I'm sitting on a chair. Now the guy that came in had a mask on, and so I couldn't see his full face. But once again, there were the eyes. And as soon as he looked at me, he said, "Don't worry, we're going to take care of you. You're going to be okay. You're going to survive." Because once again, it was like, if we don't take care of you, you're not going to make it. So I was an asset to them. I was their contact here, and I was very valuable. And so, and a lot of other experiencers. So anyway, then this third episode, then we're going to go back to you. I'm pretty sure. Um, so I was at the engineering department at Penn State University. There was a little building on the outskirts, and the students had to come in and register for something or other. And so I had the office right behind the registration. So I went out there, and then I got zapped again. It was this. Now I was looking at pictures. It was kind of very handsome young man. He was more like that. That kind of looks like Jesus, right? So he zapped me, and I'm not sure what happened. I was frozen. And the energy was like, you know what the energy feels when a portal opens? You've experienced it, right? A lot of abductees experiencers, when you have extraterrestrial contact, it's like the portal opens. It's a shift, like the barometer shifts, the air shifts, the temperature shifts, everything shifted. I couldn't move. I was frozen. This guy's looking at me, talking to me telepathically. I don't exactly know what he said or did. And that's what happened. They blanked me on this one. But as soon as he laughed, and then it was like I was free. I could move again. And went, and I was on fire. I was literally on fire. And I ran to luckily the bathroom was just out the door to the left. And I ran there and I locked it. And I literally took all my clothes off and I got picked out and hi dog. And I had to wash my whole body because I was like on fire, and it worked. Getting cold water all over me, made me stabilize. But one of the side effects is it felt very sexual. Now we were talking about energy, and energy is just energy, but when it runs through your whole body and it activates your kundalini, it gets everything going, all your chakras going, it includes all your chakras, and it just felt very sexual, and I was embarrassed. I was like, "Oh, I've got to get stabilized because I have to go back." I mean, I'm in the engineering department. I'm like the only woman with all these men. It's like I got to go back and just act normal. And I wondered if you ever had episodes where you had contact, and then you had to go out the door, around the corner, and back to the room, and act like nothing ever happened. So that's my question for you, TJ. Have you ever had anything similar to this, where all of a sudden you're just the energy's going through you so rapidly, it's just overwhelming?
Not unless I was dying or, in another place in space, but physically, the only thing I can remember was when I was a kid, second grade, with health again, and the orbs came and picked me up, and stood me up. I was a little kid and didn't understand that in the second grade, but other than that, that's probably about it. But I was too young to know anything sexually. But I mean, it was orbs coming to visit me and stood me up. So, but that was after I died with hepatitis. So there may be something we should look at medically, that sometimes they do show up, like with my daughter. So we can discuss all the health issues and how they, come
Another
around and
show on
heal
that.
us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's stick with this minute.
So then the next one in my notes, you said that this was in 93. I came in 93
Yeah.
and you left in 93. So I'm tell us
Oh,
about
okay.
the men in black they were hiding when you came home.
I like this picture you've got. It's cute. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
we had a tall hedge just like the guy in the bottom. That was a
Huh.
tall hedge on both sides of the drive. It was like that, and they did need cut.
Oh my
That's funny
God.
that you found something
I
like
think
that
AI
psychically.
directs things.
But
AI
they
directs me
were
with things.
But they didn't have their face like that. They were over to the high, where we drove into the hedges, and then he parked. And then that's when we stepped out of the van, and then he looked back on his side, and I walked around the truck to go in this way and to meet him. And that's when two men in black approached him from and called him out there like they didn't want to be seen. So he said, you going in, I'll handle this. And I was like, so I don't know if he was expecting them or if they were really men in black or who they were, but they were two men in black suits, or black clothes, because you couldn't see them, right? I don't know if they had on a uniform or a suit, but in my mind, they were two men in black. So this is when the episode with Jerry and I, this is when our divorce starts happening. Really,
Wow. Yeah.
because after that, I didn't trust him. He changed. He got really, really strange. And he and I had both worked for Navy, and we both had office jobs. I was in Office of Personnel Security, and that's a long story in that too. So I was working, classified documents in a vault and helping people come and, get their whatever they needed. And I mean, that's a whole episode there. But Jerry and I went in, and he wouldn't tell me what the men said, but I badgered him because it wasn't right. It just didn't feel right. So finally, I mean, after a lot of badgering, getting close to divorce, which we finally divorced later, because you can't live with somebody you can't trust and won't tell you what's going on in your own life. But he said finally, when he finally told me, and I don't remember when or where, it seems like we were in the bedroom finally. It was one of those late night, arguments before or after sex. I couldn't tell you. But yeah, one of those, like, I want to know. And if I had him at my, sexual will, maybe it feels like one of those, well, if you want
Right.
this, you got to tell me that, like,
Right. Yeah.
negotiate.
Mhm.
But he finally said, look, all I can tell you is they need you on the mainland to do a job. That's all I know. Like, that's all they told him, and that we were moving. I was like, moving? What do you mean we're moving? Because my whole life was for the Navy and for living in Hawaii, and I didn't want to move. I'd already divorced one husband and married this guy. And I was like, whoa. And I had, a corporation going on, and it was like, oh, wow. I was working as a psychic at several bookstores. I had a lot going on. I didn't want to move. but I had no choice, you know.
Right.
That's a whole nother story. All right. Next.
I'm
Oh,
jumping
you
around.
tell me about
Sorry about that.
the dolls.
Got a light
That's okay.
on.
This okay. So yeah, he took me across
This was
country. You put the
she has
dolls, and then oh wow, you've got the you got
yeah,
Fort Hood, right?
I don't know why it's
Wow, you
jumping by its own.
took
Stop
good
it.
notes.
Stop
All right.
it. Thank
Well,
you.
all this time,
Okay, about the Cucina doll. What was it about the Indian? Why did you go to the Indian?
I
So you
didn't
got
have
to
a
the mainland,
choice.
your Cadillac ride,
Yeah,
and then you
some
went to
lady
the
came over
reservation.
from some lady
Go
came
ahead.
over from Washington D.C. and said she was fixing all my paperwork. I said, "Did the other people come with you?" She said, "No, she came by herself." But she came over to clean up all the paperwork with the Navy and asked me, certain questions about my clearance and leaving the island. And she did all the paperwork and made it okay. So she just told me she was from Washington, D.C. and intelligence. I don't know if she said, you know, I don't know if I should say it or not, but we'll just say the intelligence community, okay? Campbell soup groups. I don't know,
Right.
but we talked certain things, and uh, I guess I knew I was leaving. So when he took me across country, we waited in Long Beach for a Cadillac, and he took me through Oklahoma, which you said, which I thought was funny, to learn about Kachina dolls and extraterrestrials. And I was like, huh? I was like, okay, so now I'm being introduced. Now, during this time, my girlfriend from China that worked in contract work with Dr. Laura Sturgis, that knew I had seen ETs, right? And had it, took me under hypnotic regression. Well, Cynthia Chu was her name, and she took me to see a psychic that said I was going to meet this guy in the future, which turns out to be my next husband, Thomas Ray Morris,
Right.
which was very odd looking back, because I kept saying, "What do you mean a guy he's like shorter than me, brown hair, brown eyes, and he had stomach issues?" And described Tom after I meet him to the T. So anyway,
Right.
that's all part of the ET story. And but Jerry took this way before I met Tom. Jerry never met Tom. This was after Jerry. It was
Right.
But it was after, I mean, Jerry didn't die till after Tom and I were married and bought a house and stuff, I think. But I don't even know when he died, but I know he died because Men in Black or somebody called me. But after the Kachina doll story, I went to meet Dolores Cannon, which was also part of my indoctrination into the ET world, I guess, if there is one,
Yeah.
for trained people in the intelligence world or contract world or Navy world, or I don't know. So I can't tell you why I was on this mission, but thanks for putting
Right.
these notes in. This is good.
Good.
So another
I try to do my secretarial skills are coming in handy. Okay, so then you said, and I got confused, and sometimes you talk fast, and it's like I can't take notes at. So it might not 100%. But something
one.
about
Good,
you were
good.
dating an NSI guy, and he went for a job
Oh,
interview, and the woman was said that some Men in Black
oh yeah, I
guys
was
came
dating
in.
NIS.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was dating yeah, that's Naval Investigative Service for those of y'all that don't know. But
Okay.
yeah, he and I was dating. But I don't know why that got in the story. Other than he discovered my tattoo, and my tattoo said SIR, Surveillance, Intelligence, and Reconnaissance, and he thought that was a very strange tattoo. But I was like, and after he discovered the tattoo, I never saw him again. So maybe that was his only mission. I don't know. Woo! That's one of those. I don't know, because those were some good times. But anyway, all right. Then it says, target woman was, oh, yeah, this is after that. The NIS guy was in Hawaii, but the girl that you've got on here about the Men
So
in Black story, that was in Oklahoma. Yeah, that's when I had got lost in the story that I'm telling you with Men in Black, and sort of forgotten about the men in the bushes and, going across country. And I didn't know all this was part of a ET Welcome to UFO World with Dolores Cannon and past life regression world. Here's Jesse Marcel. I didn't put all that together. I wasn't putting all the puzzles because my life was drawn out, through the years. So this was after dying as a kid and dying with Gigi. And, there's a lot happened in between all this death and dying in psychic world, but I still call myself a parapsychologist because of Leo Sprinkle and Ruth Montgomery and all that. But on this part of the story, Welcome to Fort Hood, yeah, this is where I physically go and then get rehired as Navy. And the man was in the Navy after I took another ASVAB D-Lab. I don't know. I don't think I took D-Lab. I just took ASVAB again. They asked me to at 3 Corps at the building there at Navy at Fort Hood. And anyway, I took it and of course scored high as usual, but not as high as I did in the 80s, but it was a lot harder 10 years later. A lot of different questions than they asked. They had changed it completely. I remember some stuff about NASA and astronauts on there. I was like, wow, what a difference. So lucky I passed it all. It was pretty complicated. But he went ahead and they put me in. I was above average. They said I scored above any college level. They did tell me that. In other words, at least with a 4 or 6 year degree master's. So basically they said, oh yeah, your scores at a master degree. I was like, wow, okay. Because I was real worried. And they're like, oh, no, don't worry about your intelligence level. So they put me in, and I signed a contract. And then I had gone out looking for a job to make money because I didn't have a job. I guess I was in limbo. And Jerry and I had started divorcing, which really complicated matters, okay? Because Jerry wanted to do his thing there with his family, and I didn't have an income. And I was like, I don't get this, so I was wanting to work. So the Men in Black that you've got here went to a place in Oklahoma. I was out looking for a job, and I had set up 2 or 3 interviews. And, I'd go on a couple, but it was like a third one finally. I was all excited about it. And I was pretty sure I was going to get it. I had to do all the paperwork in advance. It was sort of before we really were into Windows 95 and really doing everything by computer yet. It was still, you had to go in, put your paperwork in, get cleared and all that. So it's one of those kind of jobs, and like a contractor or something. But I walked up to like the 3rd or 4th floor, and a girl was outside where I would be working with glass. I remember the glass doors and a woman outside sitting in it's a very futuristic office. And she told me, oh yeah, we have you down 2 o'clock, blah, blah, blah. But some Men in Black came to see me, and they told me to tell you to stop looking for a job because you're not going to get one. I was like, what? Says, I know. She's like, I know. I'm sorry to tell you this. But she was like in shock. And I was like, was there anybody I can talk to? Does your boss know about? She says, no, you can't even go in there. So I don't know if it had a key code or what kind of job I was applying for. But I knew I wanted to talk to somebody. Like, what the hell's going on? She said, look, all I know is you got to leave, because it was very descript that yes. I said, well, how do you know it was me? He said, oh, they described you. Plus they got your name. They knew you were going to be here, what time you were going to be here, and told us you to stop looking for a job, that you weren't going to get one. So she says, you got to leave. I was like, and she's like, no, you got to go, get back on the elevator and go back. Bye. She was like very descript and scared. She was, and I don't know why they would do that to somebody, but they had arranged it. I don't know if they talked to her boss or her, but
So how did you find out about the truck? You said a Pentagon man, saw you working out of the gym, and he somehow convinced you to become a truck driver, or he gave you the idea.
Yeah,
The
he
age
was
of
part of that.
yours.
I was somehow, without them stopping me, I don't know, I was able to finagle a job at night at a bar in Fort Hood, biker bar kind of thing, to make a little cash, and I was because I was living with my daughter and her husband on Fort Hood, in a nice
Uh-huh.
home, but he was in the army, so I was staying there with
Mhm.
them, and I saw a guy from up in Sac. Where was he from? Up north somewhere. I was dating him, and Men in Black came and told him at the same time, there's Men in Black again. I don't know if you put it on here or not. I was staying with
Right.
Lauren. And you got it. I've been dating a guy. And the Men
Right.
in Black
This
came
one
up
you
and
said
told
you're
him same thing. They were messing up. I was dating him. We went out dancing, and one thing led to another. We were young, in our 30s,
right.
and I wasn't married no more. So I was, or if I was, I wasn't. I was waiting on the divorce or whatever paperwork, but I really liked him, and I was going down and staying at his apartment and washing his clothes for him, and then we'd go out on the weekend, while he worked on base. And they came and visited him, but he had told, because intimately he had told me, "Had you ever done this or that, or is there anything I should be worried about?" I said, "I don't know." So I said, "All I know is I was looking for a job, and these guys I told him about." Remember, I thought he was using it as an excuse not to see me anymore, but we hadn't had any words, and we were heavy into it. So, but all of a sudden he said, those guys you told me that time about if I should have anything to worry about, those guys came and said you couldn't have a job until, because I had told it to him that was very odd, and does he know anything like who he would think it would be or something, in bed. But he said, no, but I'll let you know. He says, I didn't take you serious at all. He didn't know me that well. And he's like, never heard of that. Why some guys not want you to have a job. But then he said, the Men in Black, they showed up and they told me I was messing up what they were doing, and I had to stop seeing you. So I'm not seeing you anymore. And he said, I don't want to tell you I'm a scared type of man. And, I really, really like you. And I know we've got a really good thing going, but man, they said they talking about pension clearance and everything. So I said, what? So he said,
Let me
look,
ask
I
you.
don't know who these are. What?
Let me
What?
ask you one thing about this episode. Let me ask you a question. You said something about your daughter, uh, Lauren. Her husband got arrested for trying to find out who you were on the computer. Tell us about that.
Well, this is what he told me in his own house at the time, our apartment. We were living right outside the side gate to Fort Hood, over close to the Navy Exchange. And he came home one day and we asked where he'd been all night. He'd been in jail, he said. We were like, what? He said, yeah, on
Oh,
base. He said they were going that they were in this war thing or war games or something, but him and his lieutenant or somebody over him, an officer, he had told his officer about who I was, so they were going to try to find out who I was by inserting my name and number or social.
mhm.
I guess he got it from living with me and Lauren. They tried to put it in there, and they came and got him in cuffs.
Oh my God.
Told them never to do that again. So that sort of gave me a clue that something was going on that was over my head and over his head. I said, well, I don't. He came and told us this. Who are you? I said, what do you mean? He said, I just wanted to see what kind of work you'd been doing over in Hawaii. I was just snooping. We were snooping, and man, they threw the book at me. I said, well, maybe you're not supposed to do that. I said, I'm not anybody in particular that I know about. I'm just, so I'll let
So,
it go.
so that all this led to, and we're going to cover this in a future episode. Uh, when you met Thomas R. Morris. So this is just a preview
That's
of
apparently
coming.
this was what all this was about.
And you have
And
to
that's
send
where
me
you
a
get
couple,
the book.
right? So you have to send me a couple more images of Thomas. This is the only one I could find searching the internet was this one here.
I don't
but I
know
know
what
that there's
happens to all
several of
the
them. So I
pictures, Janet. That used to
will
be, they were
figure it
all on
out.
my computers,
Some,
but remember I told you they took my
yeah,
hard drive when I was with
I,
Carla McCarthy in Kentucky? Remember Carla McCarthy? I don't know, Carla Ruckert, was that her name?
no.
Carla Ruckert?
Oh,
Ruckert, I think. That guy took he got our stuff. I guess it was for the government. But I don't have very many pictures,
So
Tom.
we'll figure it out. I'm going to do
I'll
one more
send you what I
thing
got.
and let me. Next slide. Well, a slideshow. Doesn't want to
you married Dr. Lessin.
Yeah.
You should have
We'll
Dr. Lessin. Yeah, you got married. Right? Great. Now all I see is me. You're trying to do a slideshow and you left me on and you left. Does that mean we're over? Can I have a copy for my notes for people that may want to be finding out how crazy this woman really is in the future? Anyway, it's been a fun life. Miss Janet, Miss Janet, Miss Janet. Janet, I'm still on here. Are you coming back? I'm not running the show, folks. I'm not producing this. I'm a guest. We're supposed to be co-producing in the future shows and interviews of authors that are in our club of people like us that have had interesting experiences in parapsychology and ESP, near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences. We've covered a lot of high strangeness and parapsychology and paranormal in our past. We've got over, let's say, 2012, over 10 years of history on radio shows. Janet Care Lessons out of Maui, Hawaii, and she is the one putting together all of these recordings for us in Hawaii. And then I'm paying also for the same StreamYard account over in our separate account in Hawaii. I'm in Florida. Sorry. I've been in Florida a while, 7 years, but I'm in Gulf Breeze, Hawaii, and Gulf Breeze, Florida. Goodness. Working with Janet. She and I met in Hawaii. And again here in, actually in Mobile, Alabama in 2017. So we were going to put together my story for 2018. And are you coming back, Janet? Hello. I don't know who's controlling this. I'm not. And I can try to see what's going on because I have a account, but I don't really have the controls. So Men in Black, Angels, Aliens, and Interdimensional Beings. And now it's going through all the different, wow, all the different slides that were on here. So, Janet, can you hear me? I can't hear you. And we're going to be doing this.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, there you are. Good. I just
get back on. So we're going to wrap
this
up.
You are.
I hope I don't have no idea how this will be. Apparently, we're both recording. Okay, so
I'm not recording.
Oh, I thought
I'm not recording. I want.
Okay.
No, but it leaves me on.
Okay.
I have a account with them. I think StreamYard left me on intentionally because it was still recording. I'm paying money, but I didn't record it.
Right about an hour.
What is this rich lady?
Okay, let me just tell you this final episode.
That's cute.
Conference. I went to the UFO Congress. It was in Scottsdale, Arizona at the time. It was probably 2016, maybe 2017. So anyway, we arrived early because I like to be a judge in the movies. They like Monday,
Ah,
Tuesday, Wednesday, they show movies or something, and you have to agree to be there for the whole thing. And so
yeah,
it started at 10 o'clock in the morning. So we said, okay, let's get there early. And there's a restaurant, so we were hungry, so we went into a restaurant. We met a couple of our friends. Not many people were there that early. We were just weird. We were doing the whole thing, and I said I got to go pee. So you have to go out of the restaurant and then into the building next door. And I go into the building next door, which is where the conference is held, the big conference arena. And there's a bunch of bathrooms on the way to the conference halls. And I slip in there, been there a million times before, and I get to one of the second stalls. And you know how you look down at the row stalls and they're all open. There wasn't anybody else in there. It was just me, and I
yeah.
was right by the door. And so I could have heard
Nobody
somebody
was in
coming in.
there.
It's very cloudy. Nobody's in there. So I come out, do my thing, and I come out to wash my hands. And at the very last stall, this old woman, and now she didn't have a mushroom or whatever that in her hand, but she was kind of like this, kind of dressed really funky. And I go, well, this is a UFO
Way too long.
conference. She
Wow.
she might think she's looking good. But then she asked me, well, what brought you here? And I said, well, my husband and I are going to be doing a table in the room there, and we talk about the Anunnaki. Oh my God, she got pissed, and she said, "You can't talk about that." And so she shifted. And then I realized, oh, this isn't a real person. I'm not talking to a real person, and she was pretty
Shade
far
picture.
away, but she literally morphed, and she wasn't just she was just like she turned into a monster. Her face was monstrous, her features were monstrous, and it looked like she would either she straightened up or got really tall. And I realized I was alone with this being, and that I was in danger. There wasn't anybody over on that side of the property, um, and and then that energy shift started going. I go, what if she gets me? Is she going to grab me and pull me into the vortex with her? So I know I swore at her, and I ran out as fast as I could, and I ran over to the restaurant. Now, meanwhile, it's like two different worlds. Everybody's sitting in the restaurant, and they're all laughing and joking, and they're having a good time. It's like, oh man, I'm not gonna freak them out. And I knew that she was there for me. If she knew too much about me, as soon
Wow.
as I started talking, she knew things. So this is kind of the weird thing that I didn't see her over again. There's only I don't know 1,000 people there. You keep running into them over and over again. So
But you
anyway, so
did
that
tell
was that was
Sasha.
that. And so what's that?
You told your husband.
Say that
You
again.
told Sasha.
I did
You
it.
told Sasha
After
about it.
yeah, after we got away from her, I didn't want them being freaked out. I wanted everybody to finish their dinner. I didn't want anybody going over there trying to find it because I thought I just knew it wasn't safe. It's just not safe to engage with whatever this was. So anyway, that was it. I have strange stuff. I wouldn't call it a Men in Black. It's not even a high spiritual being. It was some kind of yeah. It wasn't good energy. So that's
Apparition,
the
a
end of
dark being.
Dark Being. I'm
Oh,
almost finished with
okay.
this. Just got the cover designed. I'll probably be another 2 or 3 weeks, and then I want you to do this with your books. I made a
Wow,
composite
beautiful.
bunch of books that we've done,
Beautiful.
I'm going to redesign this Pierce the Veil because I want to make it colorful. I like them all colorful. Anyway, redesign that,
Yeah.
and then
I gotta
there's our
redo mine, telling the truth. Tom and my Roswell UFO
yeah.
encounters that you've got. That was one while he was still alive, but remember, we weren't coming out, and Stanton was still alive, right? And so Stanton was under contract, and then
Yeah.
Richard Duffy said he was under contract to California, right? With I guess whatever he was doing in his life.
Right.
So back in the day, people were under contracts not to speak. But I didn't sign any contracts with anybody over my books. I did them just
Right.
to get the story down. I'm glad I did while Tom was alive. But you and I've got him on radio, a lot of it, but not all of it, because he'd never tell it all. Right. So now you and
Right.
I can
So
tell the story if they
you
allow
have
us
what he
to.
told you. Well, that
Yeah,
yeah, maybe
we
they
can.
zapped me because I saw a picture.
That's a
Anyway,
beautiful picture.
this is
Lady of the Mountain.
this is coming up. I'll probably get this one done before the end of the year or beginning of 2024. This is I did
Good. I
in-law with
wish
her.
you could sell.
This was Deborah's life up until so she becomes the Lady of the Mountain, and she's the peacemaker, and she's in between her brothers and all the forces. And this is a true story about the Anunnaki, and she's trying to keep them from killing each other and destroying the world. Kind of like what's
That's wonderful that you're
going
taking
on
this.
now, with the Russians and the Chinese and the
You're taking the
please
Anunnaki
pardon.
stories. You're taking the Anunnaki stories with your husband and putting them in today's folklore, or making it a reality,
Yes,
right? You're sort of reliving the moments, but where people could
right,
understand themselves. Yeah.
right. And a lot of people
You
do
tell
that.
your husband.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that's great. I was going to say maybe Dr. Lessin could make a few child books as well, child with picture book for children or something. This is beautiful,
Yeah,
though. Love your artwork
thank
that you've
you.
been
Yeah,
putting together and
yeah.
making it
I
work.
put everything
Very beautiful.
together. I'm having fun. So yeah. So anyway, I
Well,
think
so
we've
we can
done
do this hour. An hour goes by quick. I don't know if you noticed, but it went by quick when you.
it doesn't take long at all. So it's an hour and
All
six
right,
minutes.
let's
So we're
come
going to
back.
keep it around an hour, and we will be back
Sorry.
next week. Next week we're probably going to talk. Well, we'll figure out a topic, and I'll make another PowerPoint. As you can see, we don't cover everything in one show, and it's going to be so.
No.
Anyway, probably going to do one on out of body experiences and past lives and reincarnation and ghost and lots on extraterrestrial. We're going to do one on Roswell. We got to bring Tom into this. You got your whole 20 years with Tom. You were married about 20 years,
Yeah,
right?
just living our lives, but boy, that was
Living our lives.
living living our lives, but at the same time, we did sort of like you did. We wrote a couple of books, 2 or 3 books,
Mm-hmm.
to get the story going. But because I really urged him to try to get something down, and he finally did with me. Which you have a copy, but it's not perfect, but it's got a lot of the truth in it.
Right, right. Nothing. So
So
we're going to modernize it, update, revise it, and put our perspective. Like, okay, this is what happened 20, 30, 40 years ago. Now we have new
yeah,
information,
this is
new
the real deal.
knowledge. And listen, we're wise. Look, we're old people. We're wise.
Yeah,
That's one of the
this
big
is
reasons
why
we've
I've never
survived.
attended a UFO. I was saying this is
Well, you
why
might have
I
had.
never.
Yeah.
I was
Go ahead.
I
Go
was
ahead.
saying this is why I never attended a UFO conference or ever told my story for Brown or anybody else. Any of the
Well, you
conferences, I
don't
never
know
told my story.
who's waiting for you in the bathroom. That was weird. But thank God that wasn't my first rodeo. That wasn't the first time I've seen interdimensional bizarre creatures, and it shocks you if you're not prepared. You're like, oh, it's the reality gets shattered. It's like, oh my goodness. But then my life is like, oh, this is just another occurrence. Although it still shocked me. It was the last thing I expected. It was the witch woman coming out of the bathroom. And now people who ever
Well,
go there, they might be afraid to go to the bathroom. So,
we can
all
have
right, well,
fun
let's end
doing
this.
these stories.
We will. We will. I'm going to end this because it's going to take a
Okay.
while to download. I'm going to call you on
All
the
right.
phone. So we'll talk later. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
All
Much
right. We'll
love.
do some more,
Blessings.
folks.
Aloha.
Thank you.